Select Board on Tuesday, January 18th at 6 p.m. This meeting is a hybrid meeting, which means that some or all the public bodies meeting remotely, and some are meeting physically at this location, where the public may observe, listen, and participate contemporaneously. One member of the public body or the staff is present at the location to ensure the public can participate if desired. Please note that while we strive to provide means for those attending remotely to participate in the public comment period, there may be technical difficulties or reasons that otherwise prevent or interrupt remote public participation. Therefore, it's important to note that the open meeting law only ensures the public right to participate and comment at a public meeting by attending at the at a public meeting by attending at the designated physical location as posted in the notice and agenda. If you can't connect or have technical difficulties, refer back to the agenda and the information you need is there. Okay. Would someone like to volunteer to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening? Andy, go ahead.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
One thing that we need to do first is we need to talk about the adult use recreational cannabis. On January 11th, the Select Board approved language for ballot motion. Upon further examination of the state regulations, the LTC is advising the towns only approve the following language for the ballot, which is, shall the town authorize cannabis retailers in town pursuant to 7 VSA 863. Upon consultation with our attorneys at Primer and Piper, they've advised that we address this as a clarification due to the pending town meeting and the pending town report and town meeting deadlines. 1 VSA 312D3A allows us to do this if it's the first act of business on the agenda. So therefore, we're doing this as the first act of business on the agenda. So the proposed motion, this is on a packet that's in front of you at your table here. So some of you probably haven't seen it quite yet. But the proposed motion is to approve the question for the March 2022 warning of shall the town authorize cannabis retailers in town pursuant to 7 VSA 863. So I'll give you a second to sort of process that, think about it, asking questions if there are any, and then we'll entertain a motion as the first act of business. Yeah, Lenny.
Can you refresh my memory of what the motion was before?
Sorry, or you want to say?
Oh, no, you can go.
So it was just, it's just the language has been shortened and tightened up. This is what they're recommending. So it was a longer statement of what it was. This is just what they recommend that the town use.
It had the cannabis retailer as a person, and I can pull up the exact words for you here in just a second.
Yeah, I think it had I think it had a second sentence, which was basically a definition of a cannabis retailer. And I think the idea was that we don't want to sow any possible confusion of what a cannabis retailer is. So we just keep it short and sweet and link back to the actual legislation.
Without making a definition between the two, recreational and medical.
Right there, I don't believe there was before. I think it was just in general because medical is already approved in the state. So, Dennis, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm just absorbing this now, and I thought the language we had when we voted on it the other day came from the state, and so I thought it was because we had talked about making some changes, and I thought we elected to leave it so that it wouldn't get confused. And so I'm still absorbing this new plan, and I guess I'm not against it, but I just don't, what happened to the original as far as?
I think if I remember correctly, the original stuff was something we had picked up from another town that had approved it. And so we were using that as a basis. And then we had the public sessions and comments from people that made recommendations, and we sort of put those things together, took that information, Tracy took it to the LTC and ran it by a lawyer. And then this was what they came up with, is what the best way forward is to have little controversy, is my understanding. Is that correct?
Yeah, and the state is still determining kind of all of these different types of, and this is something that is still kind of wobbly for me. So this allows you to be just pursuant to the law. And if the law changes, then it's not that we would be in conflict with the law, or if they clarify anything, we wouldn't be in conflict with any clarifications.
And we were able to find the the language you had before for language.
Yeah, so previously there was a second sentence after that question that read, cannabis retailer means a person licensed by the state cannabis control board to sell cannabis and cannabis products to adults 21 and age of older for off-site consumption. So it was a sentence.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I don't want to pick this motion apart, but shouldn't it say, shall the town of Hartford authorize retail cannabis retailers in town? I mean, it just says town. Should town of Hartford be in there somewhere?
If you look at the,
Yeah.
if you look at the other list of warnings on the ballot that we're gonna discuss, they all say, shall the town appropriate the sum of, shall the town appropriate, like they're, it's consistent with the current language on all the other items on the ballot.
Yes, go ahead.
So the language that we had in there before saying about you had to be 21 and so on, is that just redundant from the state statute that is posted here? And so that's the reason we don't need it. I mean, obviously they're not going to sell it to 3-year-olds, but is the state statute covering that, and it was just redundant and that's why we're removing it?
Mike, do you want to?
Yeah, just that reference to 7 VSA 863, we looked at that a couple meetings ago. It basically encompasses the entire regime, who you can sell it to, what you need to do to get a license, everything like that.
That helps.
So it was redundant, and if VLCT recommends this, that's probably the way to go, because they probably had resources looking into this as opposed to maybe just some other towns kind of bouncing language back and forth.
That helps. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? All right, hearing none, we'll entertain a motion. Ally, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the question for the March 2022 warning of shall the town authorize cannabis retailers in town pursuant to 7 VSA section 863.
Is there a second? Second. Second from Kim. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll
Just
call.
wait.
Oh, sorry.
I'm going to vote for this, but I'm gonna reiterate the fact that I am personally against the sale of cannabis in the town of Hartford. However, I believe that it's up to voters to make the decision, but I personally am against it, so, but I will vote for this. I just want to make it clear what my position is to voters of town of Hartford. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Right, hearing none, we'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so it's unanimous. Thank you. All right, and that will bring us to public comments. So we'll start with people in the room. State your name, your town. You have 5 minutes to speak and no personal attacks. Okay, it doesn't look like anyone in the room right now. Is there anyone online, Kim?
There are people online, but no hands raised.
Then we'll move on to select board comments and announcements. Anybody? Okay.
Wait,
Oh, sorry.
I think just as a public announcement, it was posted today. I saw on the Hartford Police Department Facebook page that Public Works will be removing snow in the downtown White River, maybe in other parts of town, but at least especially in downtown White River Junction tonight overnight. So there should be no cars parked overnight in case anyone's watching that. Don't leave any cars downtown overnight.
Thanks for a reminder. Others?
Oh, Mike had his hand up and then he put it back down.
All right, so now we'll go on to board reports, motions, and ordinances. First thing up is the fiscal year 2023 budget.
Okay, so this is a pager right here that goes over the background is just a summary of the last few meetings we've had. And a decision that was made last night to accept the proposed plan provided in a January 17 memo. And the board voted to add parking meters back into the budget. The town will use the 408-233 to pay for specific equipment items listed in the January 17th memo. which gives us the appropriations, non-tax revenue, tax revenue, and unassigned funds that you see in that table below. That leaves a balance of about 2 million in the unassigned fund. Thanks to Joe Turner for running this. The tax on a home valued at $250,000 is $6,967, assuming that education and county rates stay the same, and ensues a grand list increase of a little under 100,000. It represents an increase in 7750 from fiscal year 2022. You can see your tax rate increases right there. Then we need to re-motion the Queechee wastewater fund. We had some transposed numbers. Happy to entertain questions, comments, or let y'all talk amongst yourselves.
Any good?
So I want to be clear on something. Should this budget pass tonight, and should there be an error found in the budget in the next couple of weeks, what is our path to reconciliation?
So anytime, funny enough, I was just looking through some historic files and found previous instances where anytime that we find an error in something like this, whether it's a warning or anything like that, we would re-meet, re-motion, and then re-warn whatever we needed to re-warn. So for example, in the past, there's been a typo in a warning, and we've come together, we fixed the typo, come together, reapprove the warning, and then resubmitted it to the pool of people and reposted it that we need to post.
But this budget that's presented tonight to be voted on, if it passes, will go in the school and town municipal report
Yes,
as it stands.
yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had a question. I thought I had numbers yesterday that if we added back the 200,000, the tax increase would be like 100 something as opposed to 77.
Do you want me to grab, do you want to talk? Yeah.
Yeah. I'll wait. Okay, so last night when we met, I was running my calculations, Joe was running his calculations.
Yeah.
We had a couple of adjustments. Each of you should have in front of you Fund 10 packet in front of you. I talked about the transposed number that we found in the IT department, which reduced the budget by 29,000. So I did make that adjustment. And it gives you the page number where to look at. And then we did add back in the parking meters. We also identified that there was an error in one of the special appropriations, so we fixed that. So the total net change was 170,000, not what we thought it was last night.
Okay.
And with that, Joe Turner is using, as the town manager mentioned, an increase in the grand list of about 98,000 and some change. So with that increase in the grand list in these changes is how we're at the new number today.
Okay. And so the initial number last night before we added back in, what was it? Was it 7750 then? No.
No,
It was 65. Okay, so this is more like a $12 increase. Does the fact that we also have to re-vote the wastewater fund change anything in this?
it does not change the general fund at all.
Okay.
And the Fund 65, not to get off track on it, but the original motion that was done, the expense and the revenue was flopped. After further review, yesterday, I met with the Director of Public Works, and she had identified another error in there, which you have a packet for Fund 65. However, that fund is still whole. It actually now makes it in balance. So there was a transposed number, and
it is in balance now.
Okay, and what was, do you know, yesterday, when Joe gave us that initial figure, what was the grand list? Estimated increase, or did he include that? Is this 90,000 like a new number? 98,640? Is that new from like last night?
Joe has been carrying that on his spreadsheet, and I don't carry it on
Okay.
mine because I'm a little bit more conservative. Historically, when we've always done the budgets, we've only used the number of the grand list as of July 1st of 2022, which is the budget that we're working in now. That is something that the town's done historically. I'm not against and don't oppose Joe and Tracy's new process of, estimating the increase in the grand list. Is just something that I don't do. I'm a little bit more conservative because obviously if the grand list goes up, that's great. Your
Yeah.
tax rate goes down. However, if the grand list goes down, your tax rate goes
Yeah.
up. So
Okay, well, I guess I just comment that 77 is more palatable than 100, which I saw yesterday. I just, and I don't know how this will affect my vote on the budget, but we saw a lot of numbers coming in from federal and state funds, including ones that have not yet come from the infrastructure bill. And parking is infrastructure. I mean, I don't know how you could say it wasn't. So, I mean, I just wonder, is adding this in now, increasing that tax rate, it's from 65 to 77. Does that make sense, given that it's very likely these could all be funded from an outside source? And so I guess that's more of a comment. It's not really a question, but I do think that's something to consider because we do have that money coming in. Thanks, that's all I had.
Yeah,
I think that's a good point to make, Mike. As you know, you participated in the meeting last night. There was a lot of discussions about the ARPA money and whether or not a decision should be made now. Unfortunately, decisions will be made after the budget is approved. One recommendation that I could make as the finance director is if the board, whoever the sitting board is at the time, if the voters do approve this budget come July 1st, you as the board have the opportunity to make that decision if you'd like to use the ARPA money for the parking meters. And then the 200,000 that's currently in the general fund, you can make that decision to earmark it and say, we want it to go back into the unassigned fund. That is a decision that you do have the ability to make. Will it help the taxpayers in the FY23 budget? Not with their tax bill, but it's something that they could reap the benefits from in the 2024.
Gotcha, thank you.
I guess I'm curious as to, so if if what we thought was 108 or 103 last night is 7750. Sorry, I'm losing my track of my thing. Yeah, if it's 7750, I guess I'm curious of what we thought was $65 last night actually was, because if we take $30,000, $29,000 out of the IT and add the grand list in, like just to compare apples and apples.
That's a good point.
What's today's version of the 65 compared to what we thought last night? Is that my asking that question?
You're asking, was
Yeah.
the 65 a real number?
Right. So
Taking in Joe's, and it's a conservative increase on the grand list, but switching out. If we would have pulled parking meters out and ran these numbers again, it was a $42.25 increase to the taxpayer.
So
So
it
it
wasn't
is-
65, it was 42.
If we use Joe's conservative increase of a grand list increase of 98.
So, I'm sorry.
It's
So it's
another,
still 30.
it's another 35 bucks a parcel if you use his quick and dirty math of dividing everything by the number of parcels.
Gotcha.
5,600 parcels, at an average of 250,000 per parcel. Just follow up. Do either of you happen to have what that percent increase would be?
The current one that we're talking about right now, Kim, or the one? from
Yeah, or
last
even
week?
just the tax rate, maybe not necessarily the percent increase, but what the tax rate amount would be. Like right now, we're looking at 1.0594
It would be 3.01%
and the tax rate.
is 1.0594.
That's with parking meters and,
That's with all the changes. Is that,
okay, I guess I'm curious what the rate would be without parking meters, I guess. So still comparing apples to apples. Like last night, we were looking at 2.56 without parking meters. Increase over 2022.
do you want to have Joe calculate that?
With the percent increases.
I think Kim's asking if we
What
take the number
tax
that we
rate
have
would be. Oh, yeah,
tonight,
sorry, so I'm
less
looking
the
at-
200,000.
I'm confusing percent increase with tax rate.
Yeah.
My apologies.
Which one are you looking for? The
I
one,
mean, so now I have the percent increase. I guess I would like what the new tax rate would be as well, if you have it, if not.
Joe's on Zoom, so he's listening to us. the whole time.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Kim, but basically, without the parking meters, we'd like to know what the tax rate is and the tax rate increase. Is that accurate? Am I off on that?
Right.
Okay,
And-
and I think, so we can make an informed decision.
Yeah, and we gave you the money change,
Yep.
but you like the percent and the 1 point,
Right.
blah, blah, blah.
We
Okay,
just want all the information. so-
yeah. Joe, are you hearing this? Is he,
He's on as an attendee.
it might take him a few minutes.
I guess I'm confused about why we're revisiting the issue of parking meters again at all, because we voted them to put them in the budget. So why are we spending this time revisiting the issue of parking meters when we voted to have them? It doesn't matter what it would be beforehand. We voted to have them in there. So I'm just wondering why you're looking for this information.
Can I answer? I'll tell you why I'm looking for it, and that's because we are actually looking at slightly different numbers than we did look at last night, and also B, we haven't voted to approve the budget with including parking meters yet. That is what we're about to do. So this is the discussion leading up to that motion that someone can make to approve the numbers presented.
And that's the numbers we're looking at in front of us right here. And that's based on the $77.50.
In the recommended motion.
Hey Tracy.
Hey, Joe.
Hey, how are you guys? Hey, show them that slide I just sent you. That'll show the percent change of all the rates associated with the parking meters. The kind of what if, I seen just like it said, what if no parking meters? That shows you the rate changes and the proposed differences of all that. There you go.
Let me
So
see if I can.
1.0453.
Is it that 1.4?
Yeah, what it would have changed is basically a straight $200,000 deduction off the general highway fund, which is the operating expense minus everything else that we have taken out of it. So it changes to 1.019 from, I don't even know what it was. I don't have it in front of me. 1.0332 to 1.01 or 1.0191. That's the difference there in your rate, Kim. This is a decent change. I mean, I said $35 for parking meters. But anyway, again, it's assuming a $250,000 home here too. So
Ally and Mike.
And Joe, what's the percent increase? Thanks for the tax rate. And then what would
Oh,
that
sure.
percent increase be without parking meters?
I do not have that in front of me, and I'm horrible at percentage increases. So look, give me a second. I can get that for you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dan. I was just gonna say, I was interested in, having these numbers run about the parking meters, because, we added it fairly late last night, and it was a $35 tax increase, which seemed to me that we were going kind of in the wrong direction with, trying to keep this impact as little as we could. So I just wanted to get some more numbers today on what it would look like, so I can make up my mind about whether to support the budget.
So I don't want to get too far off the subject of parking meters, but I do have a question I think that Dale can answer for me in regards to this. Historically, can you tell me what have been the totals for the social service programs that we've had, and then what impact that will have if we could just have an average and see what that would impact our budget this year? Do you have those numbers?
I don't have the historical numbers in front of me. From my memory, most of the service appropriations request the same amount of funding every year. And I don't recall any significant increases since I've been here in 5 years. And so for this year, it's 224,177 is what the appropriations are. Those are the articles that are voted on by the voters on the warning.
So that will increase our budget if those get approved, which is historically they have.
Those are already included in the tax rate.
They have been included.
They have been included in the tax rate. The county tax is also included in the tax rate,
Okay.
as well as the local agreement, which is for the veterans exemptions. So there's not an additional tax rate increase as you review the warning tonight. It specifically states you'll be approving, you're putting forth this budget for this net amount plus any appropriations which are listed below.
And, okay, so I'm confused. Appropriations meaning for the social services programs, correct?
That is correct.
But they're included in the budget.
They are included in the budget. So when
So
you,
this is not a true budget just for the town of Hartford operating expenses.
It would be incredibly short-sighted for us, knowing that there's a large community presence and the social service appropriations total $250,000 and are passed really strongly by the community, to not include that as a cost that we need to consider.
And I understand that, but that's, to me, that's, I didn't realize that was that way. To me, that's a little misrepresentation of the budget, because the true budget for the town of Hartford is the operating expenses for the town of Hartford, separate from the social services programs. And we've always had it programmed in the past about this is what the town budget is, and and then the social service programs are added on top of that. And I just think it's a little bit of misrepresentation to include the social service programs and then ask the voters at the bottom to approve them. You've already included in the budget, but then you're saying, do you want to vote for these things? So
I
if
think
we-
we're getting ahead of ourselves with the warning, because the warning language actually requires us to pull the appropriations out for the warning language.
Yeah, we're gonna add something, or?
So where is that?
In item number 1 on the warning, it has, I'm sorry, item number 2, my apologies. It has a different number. It's 18,453,994.33 plus any appropriations voted below. So I haven't done the math, but I'm guessing that number plus the 224,177 totals the
Yes.
amount of 18,678,171.
So what's the number we're seeing in our budget books then, I guess, at the end of the day? Are we seeing the 18,453,994? Is that the number in our budget books?
We book the social service appropriations into MuniSmart as part of the budgeting process, so we're all aware of the costs that we're likely incurring on them. So those are in your budget book.
So okay, so wait a minute. I'm trying to understand what the actual motion will be for tonight. It'll be on the 18,450. On page 2 of this, the motion is not making sense. The motion says 18,678 171.33, but you've got shall the town authorize expenditures for 453,994.
In the, are you comparing the warning and the motion?
Recommended motions to the warning.
This is the entire cost, including those social service appropriations,
Well, you're-
because it would be
I
disingenuous.
can't see
for-
what they're holding up. I
This
can't read
is,
the,
this is the item that we're talking about now.
the 2-page that's
Yes.
labeled fiscal year
The
2023.
warning, we are required to remove the appropriations from that number and present the number in item 2, which Kim just read off, plus any appropriations voted below.
I understand that, but $2,698,633 plus $18,453,944.33 does not add up to 18,678,171.33.
Let's go to Gail, maybe she can explain this, I think. Yeah.
Okay, so each of you, I gave you a packet in front of you that has the general fund. If you flip it over to the very back, go all the way to the right. That's column 6. This is the total budget for the town. The 18,678,171.33. That includes the $224,177 for the appropriations. The other document that you have in front of you, which I don't have a copy of, but Tracy has, what she's explaining to you, is that when you get to the warning, you're going to be approving the budget of the 18,678,171.33 less the appropriations, which brings it down to 18,453,994.93. This is the way that the warning has always been written, and it gives the voters the opportunity to vote on each individual service appropriation to determine whether or not that's something that they would like to support. In the event that the voters do not support certain articles for certain service organizations, at the time when we do the tax rate in June 30th or July 1st, whenever we get the state tax rate, that will affect what the actual tax rate is. Is that clear to everybody? A better understanding?
Sounds good.
Kim, and if I could just add, basically, the motion we've got as item A, 3A, is to vote to approve this total budget book, which is that total number including appropriations. Then there will be another motion where we are approving the warning, the town and school district meeting warning, which is this language that describes it to the voters as this amount plus the appropriation. So this motion is about approving this group of numbers. And then item 3C is approving this document language. Right?
Yes.
Good explanation. Thank you, Kim. Other questions or comments?
You know, Lanny, are you okay? Because I think it's important that all of us understand exactly what we're voting for. This is important. And
I'd just like to see it broke down and on paper for me, because going back and forth between 3 different pieces of paper here, so. Find a little. Yes.
So we actually can't break it down any further because this document that you have for the general fund is going to be going into the town report, less all of the comments, because we don't put all the comments into it. So when the voters are actually looking at the budget, it's important for them to see everything. And we can't do a separate attachment just for the appropriations part of it. That's actually listed on the warning.
Okay, just because I'm a little slow tonight, just walk through this again for me, if you can, please.
Sure. So you have this packet on
Yeah.
the, on the very last page,
Yeah,
all the way to the right,
I got you.
column 6, the total general fund budget that is in front of you is 18, excuse me, is $18,678,171.33.
Right, yep.
That includes 224,177 for your appropriations. Tracy, can I have that warning?
We're sharing a copy of the warning right now.
So the net budget less the appropriations, which you'll be voting for on the warning, is 18,453,994,33.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I see that one, 18.
And then the articles from number 4 all the way down through 20 those are the service appropriations that total the 224,177.
Gotcha.
You good now?
I'm with you.
Okay.
I wasn't looking at the warning. Thank you.
It's a good question. It can be a little bit confusing looking at the total number and then the warning part of it.
I know you're right. I just need to get it to my head.
And I appreciate you asking the questions because as Joe indicated, it's very important that you're comfortable with what you're viewing.
I guess I trust you, but I gotta get it on my head.
Well, trust only goes so far, so you have to understand it.
No, trust but verify. Thank you.
And just in case anyone's wondering, typically when we have about 2,000 people voting at the town meeting, between 1,500 and 1,700 and up approve of the social service appropriation. So it is a very popular thing with the voters. I only looked at the last year-ish, but it's pretty popular.
Good, Lenny?
I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, Dennis,
I think so far, yep.
Ally?
Well, sorry, Joe, I feel like I keep putting you on the spot. I just am curious if you were able to work out that percentage increase by chance, and thank you.
Oh, sure, yeah, I was trying to sneak that back in there. 1.3%-ish, 1.3 and change.
1.3, okay.
Yeah, it's to be completely exact, it's 1.332% on the rate change.
Thanks, Joe.
Yep.
Joe, anything?
One of the things we were trying to do is we were trying to keep this budget around 3. An increase. And even with the parking meters, we've done that. Full disclosure, coming into this meeting with the numbers that we saw yesterday, I even though I wanted the parking meters, I was going to vote it down. I feel a little better today that, the number that we're saying is 3. And that's where we wanted to keep it. I think that's where after a flat budget last year is something that the town could tolerate and be palatable. So I get my parking meters. And we solve, well, we don't solve. We take a little bite out of an issue that has plagued this town for a while. But this summer, with Northern Stage having its outdoor venue, with the VFW hustling and bustling with, as Kim said yesterday, the town, downtown White River, businesses as popular as they've ever been. So thus, the parking issue is going to be just that, an issue. And so if we can solve that to a certain extent, not completely, but to a certain extent, and we have that, I am, and we keep the tax rate around 3. I'm tax increase, excuse me. I feel good about that. So that's my pitch for you guys.
All right. Mike,
This looks a lot better than last night. I'll give you that, for sure. There's a lot of great services in this budget. And I think getting them for this $40, if we don't include the meters, that increase of 40 instead of 77, I think that's good for the taxpayer. I also think we can get these meters paid for, by the feds. So, I think I'll probably vote against it if that's included.
Kim,
Ditto to what Mike Waite just said, and there is a public comment. You want to take it? You ready for that? Or-
oh, sorry, let's go to Dennis and then we'll go.
Mr. Chair, I didn't realize, what I had imagined we were going to do was, I think this is before what I was thinking was going to happen. I figured that this would get moved and then we'd have discussion. So I was holding my comments for that. So it sounds like we're kind of doing that now. So should I do that now or wait?
Do it now, Dennis.
Okay. I have a thing I drew up today. I wanted to say that I was against the original budget because the guidance from the select board was to have no more than a 3% increase. At that time, the town manager told board members that this wasn't doable due to new demands of the Climate Action Plan, the CAP, which voters supported, and $30,000 was spent in tax dollars for that committee. She advised at that budget guidance meeting that due to the CAP, it would be more like a 5-ish% increase. We received the first budget proposal from the town manager, and it ignored the CAP and contained about 12 new staff members and came out then about 5%. That budget was approved by a 5-2 vote, me being one of the nay votes. Then we went to take 2. After several days, the select board was notified that some omissions had been noticed totaling $595,000. Town manager reworked the budget, this time with more staff and sent, I skipped here, I'm sorry. And with their staff and sent those proposed changes. The new changes kept all of the new staff members that were proposed and still ignored the CAP. I'm still confused a bit on if any cuts from the first take were left out of this new budget. I believe, this is where I got foggy last night. I believe 225,000 in this new version is still there, and with the hopes of getting some ARPA funds in the next budget to cover that. Many of you have heard from me many times that I'm for taking care of what we currently have before we buy new things. During last night's presentation, I felt like the proposed new Parks and Recreation staff members made the most sense. This is because after it was explained again, I don't think I got this the first time, but I certainly did last night. Having those will, without a doubt, increase revenue and essentially pay for themselves. So that seemed like a no-brainer after the kind explanation from Mr. Hausler. I agree having all the other staff would be nice, but still struggle with them. In the business world, businesses are always trying to get more with less. A lot was discussed about the fire department and Queechee Station 2. This budget has 4 new firefighters that will make it so the Station 2 can be manned 100% of the time. To me, it is decision time on this because, as I explained, there will be more and very expensive needs from the fire department if this gets approved. I kind of likened this, I think, last night to when we had WABA and where we were going to be in the ice business and all. You know, it took millions to straighten that facility out to what it is now. But that was a hard decision for me. And I feel that we're at a point right now where we either go all in with this and support the whole thing, including buildings and whatever else the department might need. So if we get the full staff there, they're going to have a building to accommodate the whole staff there. Having another fire department could be a good idea, but it will stop there. But will it stop there? If we do this in Queechee, why not build some more? One in West Hartford and Wilder. I pointed out to management, past and present, many of the things in our town that need to be fixed that still aren't fixed. We had a sensor on the intersection out here on Route 14 and Prospect Street that it stopped working. And now the cars that go through there, it's on a rotation instead of a sensor. So all day long, all night long, if there's traffic, cars sit there. And this is an energy waster for us. And it also is more pollution. Things that the CAP was driving home. There's a railing under the underpass over here on Bridge Street that's missing some balusters. And it's wide enough a kid could fall through this. And we haven't seen that repaired yet. And I don't believe these repairs are addressed in the budget. I often hear why we can't do these repairs, but it's more stuff that we have that's not being fixed. It's very troubling to have these things in disrepair and then have the notion of adding and buying more new things to this member. I'm fearing that we may be adding to more big government to our little town. Our valued resident Chuck Bohai used to say, be careful when the government says, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. When I ran for election, I basically told voters that I'd try my best to keep spending in track, and that's what I've hopefully always done. And these are some reasons why I can't support this budget. Thank you.
I support many of Mr. Brown's sentiments. I have my own as well. From the very start of this budget process, the presentations that were made, not given the opportunities at the end to be able to address my concerns, I thought was a little unrealistic. And now we're back to having to do all this at this point in time. I'm not saying that it would have been cured then, but there was some inconsistencies in the budget presentations. When we got the budget in December, the numbers were wrong. That was a total fiasco circus. We got it straight round. Due to the diligence of Gail's wonderful magic with the budget, we managed to come in with what we currently have, but that's because we're using reserve funds. We're using unused salary funds. Funds that Gail has been able to pull out from underneath rocks that we didn't know about. Thanks to her diligence, we managed to pull this thing off. But we all got to remember we're coming up short next year already. To start with, we're coming up short. It seems like everybody's counting on the ARPA funds to bail us out of the bailiwick that we're going to get ourselves into by spending this money. I personally think there's unrealistic goals that have been put forth on the fire department for the fire and ambulance. We as a town cannot serve the entire population of the town of Hartford with response times of 4 minutes. It's impossible. The expectation to do so is unrealistic. I realize that we have to serve as many as we can, but when we had the ability to compromise last night and get 3 firefighters and still have better coverage than what we currently have, there was no art of compromise that took place within this board. And I find that very discouraging. That to me is a very large point of government, is compromise. And there was none of that took place. I think through this whole budget presentation in the season, the transparency and accountability has been lacking in this. And nobody's taken acceptance of mistakes that have been made. And to me, it makes more statement about someone when they accept responsibility for things. And I can't support this budget. And as I said last night, I cannot ask others within the community to support this budget. I'm not going to tell them to vote against it, but I'm sure not going to ask them to support it. And that's where I stand.
Lenny?
Yeah, thanks, Lanny. I mean, I do have to disagree a little bit with the accountability piece, just because, you know, I do feel like, yes, it was unfortunate that we heard about some of the omissions to the budget in December. But then I think, you know, Tracy and department heads and Gail and everyone, you know, called those mistakes forward and brought it forward to us and said, this is something we need to address. And I remember, I think it was maybe Kim who said, you know, this is all of our responsibilities on the board also to be reviewing this. This is our budget too. So, and that was maybe a mistake on our part as well. And so, you know, I think we've done the best that we can to hold ourselves accountable and to acknowledge mistakes that have been made. And, you know, yes, it makes things a little bit messy. And we're here today where we had hoped that we would have had this figured out and signed and sealed in December. But, you know, I think that we've been doing the best that we can. And kind of going back to, as I learned the rate from Joe without the meters, not to fixate on the meters, but, you know, I do wonder and do think that members of our community would really appreciate, you know, the difference between without meters is 1.332% rate of increase. And then with the meters is 3.01% increase. I think it would be pretty miraculous if we were able to, like, and I understand the value of meters. I understand downtown parking is an issue, but from what I'm hearing from folks about really keeping that rate as low as possible, as folks are still dealing with a global pandemic and the crisis of this moment, I think it does feel very appealing to me. And I think for many of our voters to be able to keep it closer to that 1.332% increase without meters. So I would be in favor of revisiting those numbers that I think were proposed to us last night that did not include the meters.
Chairman, can I just one response, please? Yeah, I with all due respect, Ali, I have to make a statement on one thing on the accountability and transparency part. This budget, we knew there was a failure in this budget on December 30th, but the select board was not aware of that budget. I don't know about you guys, but I wasn't available. I wasn't aware of that until like the 6th. And the fact that behind the scenes tried to bring all these changes before us, that's still the town, that's still the select board's budget. We should be involved with that. The changes, with having Gail sit down here in front of us to try to figure out where those changes are going to be made. That shouldn't be made behind the scenes. I don't appreciate that happening. And I still found that there were a lot of errors. Like I said, we had to bring Gail on board here. Thank God we have Gail. All right, that's all I can say. I mean, Tracy said that Gail wasn't available. I don't know if Gail was asked, but we need that person right there to the utmost. And she's helped this town with this budget beyond all stretches of imagination. And I really appreciate you, Gail. I mean that. And I still have a difficult time with this budget, and I believe that we were lacking a lot of transparency. And again, I don't see the accountability here. And to say that we are responsible for this budget, I don't know what you do for your life work, but I'm not an accountant, and I'm certainly not an auditor. And to say that I'm responsible for going through and making sure that all these things add up right, that's irresponsible for you to say that. I am not responsible for doing that. We are always told that we hire experts within the town of Hartford to bring decisions before this board. Well, we've had experts within the town of Hartford that have had these decisions to bring before the board, and they failed. Okay. And so that's why we're going to the point where we're at right now. So we are not experts. We are not the ones to take responsibility to make sure this budget is correct. I do not agree with that whatsoever. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yes, it's unfortunate we didn't, those things were overlooked. It was brought to our attention. We took care of it. I'm glad actually you didn't contact me during the Christmas season about this. I think January 6th was a perfect time to tell me that. I appreciate the work that you did to come up with a proposal to offer to us. I appreciate the work you did yesterday, giving us information, answering the questions that were very good of the select board and hearing from the public. I used to work for the legislature. I know what it's like to work for elected officials, and it's not always that great. So I want to say, I really appreciate the effort that you put in, and I thank you for all that you've done to help us get to this point.
Mr. White, who are you speaking to over there?
I am speaking to the town manager, I'm speaking to Gail, I'm speaking to Lana, speaking to the CATV guy, all the people who chimed in last night from the various departments here, and the public as well.
The heavy lifting was done by Gail.
We have some public comments. Yep. Ready for those? Can you bring over Mike? Or Mike, you have mute.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Mike Morris, Hartford, Vermont. Two quick questions. I think they can be answered very quickly. One is a little bit off the budget thing, but Joe has mentioned several times that we had a flat budget last year. And I guess I just don't get where we had a flat budget last year. I thought we did increase taxes and everything else. If you could explain that. And secondly, I heard last night that the installation of meters was included in the 200,000. And a year or so ago, before we put it on the ballot, the installation was going to be done by staff, and it was not included in the 200,000. And I'd like to get that clarified, please. Again, the installation was going to be done by staff, and it was not included in the 200,000. So if we could clarify who's installing the meters and the labor and what that cost would be if staff does it. Thank you.
I don't know, do we have that information or not? If I remember correctly, I think the figure.
Probably not.
Sorry, what?
Okay.
I think the figure that we had originally was 175. And we just sort of did an estimate for what it was moving forward. If I remember Hannah correctly, that could be totally wrong, but I think there was a number when we looked at this previously that was less than that, and that was just adding in something for inflation and for installation. Is that correct? I'm not sure.
I'm pulling up my emails.
Kim?
I think it was closer to 140. And Mike, I mentioned last night that I was hoping a $200,000 figure would include installation, but that was not based on any solid information. That was a question.
What did we ask for lot money last year? Didn't we ask for 200,000? And that did not include
It was,
installation, because I questioned Hannah about that at the time when Brandon was our service manager, our town manager, and she was guessing 15,000, 20,000. We didn't know for sure. We had to drill holes, put in post. I just want to make sure that because you brought that up last night about the labor, and it struck a chord with me because I did ask that question.
I think it must have been 2020. It wasn't 21 on the ballot.
Correct.
And just for my notes last night that Gail gave us, the tax rate increase last year was 1.44%. So it was not 100% flat because there were some unavoidable increases and step increases, those kinds of things. But as a general, we didn't add any services last year. So from 20 to 21, the increase was 2.25%. From 21 to 22, which Joe has referred to as flat, it was 1.44% increase. And I'll find the sample ballot from 2020. I have the 21 up.
I guess I don't understand what he means by flat.
Well, it was negligible, Mike. It was a negligible, that's what I meant by that. Normally budget increases are around 3%. That was a negligible increase. So that's what I meant by that.
Okay, to me, flat it'd be the same. So, all right.
Okay.
All right. I just thank you for that.
You're welcome.
So do you want Christine?
Sure, and then, but I also just want, I have the ballot from 2020 here. With the, go ahead and bring Christina over and then I'll get that information.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go
Yes.
ahead.
My name is Christina Tardy. I am a Town of Hartford resident. I do work for the Town of Hartford, but I do not represent the Town of Hartford opinion right now. I have a question on the procedure going forward. It sounds like some select board members are okay with some parts of the budget and each individual, maybe they don't agree with for firefighters, some don't agree with the meters. Is it possible to kick the points that the select board members don't agree with to the voting? For example, like when the pool was a big issue, that was kicked on the ballot. So is it possible to is it possible to kick like for firefighters for the town to decide? No, give me a second. Please. In a minute. I think, do you understand what I'm trying to ask? Like if the
Yes,
select board members don't agree on firefighters, maybe that can be kicked down the town to vote. If you guys don't agree on meters, maybe the town can decide, do we want meters or not? So maybe that makes it easier for the select board members and voting the budget. That was my question.
Yes, we understand the question. Thank you. I don't actually know the answer to that. If I think what we've tried to do so far is take the budget, and as we did last night, we pulled some things in, took some things out. And so we have a question in front of us, which includes everything we did last night. And we haven't approved that yet. We're doing that this evening. So if individual members want to pull some of those things out, we could. I don't know at this point the process or how that works, or if there's even time to do those as separate items on the ballot. And my guess is probably there isn't time for this year, considering we have to get it to the printers ASAP, but I'm not sure. I don't have the answer to that question. You guys know? Anybody?
In terms of pulling out items that are part of the general fund versus a specific funding pool. Gosh, there could be something out there that says that that's a doable thing. My greatest concern, the thing that I go to is about the separation between residents and operations, and those sort of things. But I think you're right, Dan, and that the ship has sailed for us doing the legal groundwork on that.
Yeah, Kim.
Just wanted to follow up. So the 2020 ballot, there was asked for $160,000 out of local option tax to purchase a parking meter system for downtown White River Junction. And it was voted down 2,088 against and 906 for. And that question of that vote was if we were to use local option tax revenue for that purpose. So the estimate was based on the research that Chief Caston at the time and Director of Public Works did. That was that figure. And then without going back and asking for specific estimates again, Hannah proposed that we estimate 200,000 being 3 years later.
Thanks, Kim.
Good explanation. Thank you. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, is there anyone else on? Oh,
I don't think so.
we'll go to Dennis and then go to the next.
Thank you again. I'm glad that citizen brought up about possibly putting things, I realize we're late in the game now. This might not even be doable, but I would have felt more comfortable on a big question like opening up a whole new fire department, putting that out to the voters rather than us sitting here and deciding, because, well, it would just be interesting to see what the town's thoughts are on that. We're, some of us are for this, some of us aren't, but maybe we're not seeing the whole picture. We're not all from Queechee. We're not all from White River. Anyways, I think that could have been broken down as a question for the ballot.
I think it potentially could be, but I don't think it for this year, for this time frame. I don't think it's doable.
Yeah.
But something for everyone out there who's a resident to think about in the future. For us to consider. Go.
Can I make a suggestion? Since we've like colleague Mr. Brown said, since we're fairly late in the game, if we can make a motion on what's currently in front of us. I think it's pretty obvious it's going to be voted down. And then I think make an option, a motion after that on the revised budget without the parking meters.
I don't think you can just state that we're gonna pull parking meters out of this thing. There's other ways to get this budget passed without taking out parking meters. You yourself said last night that we kicking this thing down the road and kicking it down the road. There are other ways to go about this.
And I agree. And you talked about not negotiating. I tried to do that yesterday with you. So I disagree a little bit with you yesterday because I wanted to have all the firefighters in Queechee, but I said, you know what, I'll give you that to try to get to the that 200,000 that we're looking for. And I do agree with you that, we wanted to get there, but I'm trying to be pragmatic at this point. And I won all of, except me, all of you gonna vote down this current budget. I mean, we've all, we've seen that. So that's gonna be 6-1. And so what are we gonna do to pass a budget tonight? We gotta pass a budget tonight. So it would seem to me that the most prudent thing to do at this point would, and to take away the meters. I don't want to do that. I mean, I'm on the record. I'm one of the ones that said I'm championing this. But at some point, we gotta wave the white flag, and I'm not happy about it. If you name the top 5 issues of this town, parking would be in that top 5. You're gonna say number 1?
I think so.
I would.
We've been
I would,
battling this for some time.
I mean, from parking garages to alternative spots, to the VFW saying, why are you parking in my, which I understand, and down Northern Stage having an outdoor venue and people parking in there in the same spot. I'm frustrated by it, and I understand that, we have ARPA funds and things of that nature, but it's not on the table right now. So what can we do in a prudent manner to get a budget passed? And, I think disgusted would be overstating it, but I'm disappointed that that we're not doing the parking meters. And I absolutely respect Mike and his opinion, and I don't agree with it. I do respect it. I know he's, doing his fiduciary duty, but I don't see any other choice at this point. We're up against it, and that's our own fault. And you talked about accountability. That's this body's fault.
So, Mr. Chairman,
Please, I'm sorry.
So wait, Kim had her hand up next. We'll go Kim over there.
I just wanted to make one more comment, and then I'm absolutely ready for a motion whenever it's not to make it, but to hear it. I want to frame the Station 2 staffing as not simply firefighters, but these are EMTs. We are in a mental health crisis, opioid crisis. We have issues with public safety and the health of our community. And so I think I just want to make sure that when we think of those positions, we're not only thinking about the very critical, important role of putting out fires, but also the the emergency medical response that comes along with that. So I just want to make sure that we're thinking of those positions in that way.
Okay, so without touching staff, without touching meters, we initially had a proposal from the town manager to take 1.4 million from the unassigned funds. It's now dropped it to 1 million. What if we compromised and said 1.2 million to help pay for our meters? That would leave us with how much in the unassigned funds?
Just quickly, I mean, Gail, who you have great respect for, said last night that she did not recommend taking more than $1 million out of the
I
unassigned
understand
fund
that.
balance.
I'm asking the question of what, I believe the statement was leave less than 1 million, wasn't it?
No,
Take out more than 1 million? What would it bring us on unassigned funds to?
About 1.8 million.
There's a way to pay for it. We're taking 1.2 million from the unassigned funds. And next year, if all our dreams come true and we get ARPA funds, we don't have to worry about that. And I think that's a way that we can get what we want. And we are looking at money that we have already available to us from ARPA funds. And I would,
Can I?
go ahead.
And actually, in what Lanny is saying, when you think about it, with we know we get 1.4, is that 1 point, is with the funds that we have from the that we've gotten so far. I believe it, you said 1.4 million, is that?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, Gail, with the parking meters, if we use, let's say that money that we have, we use towards parking meters, then we have that $200,000 that we can use, and then we could basically put it back into the unassigned funds. Is that? I mean, I know, like you said, that's we're doing little smoke and mirrors and things of that nature, but is that?
So if I understand you correctly, if you were to use 1.2 million right now out
Yeah.
of the unassigned fund,
Yeah,
and then say June 30th, again, pending the voters
Yeah.
approve the budget,
yeah,
and then in June or July, you decide that you would like to utilize your ARPA funds to actually purchase the parking meters.
Yeah.
You could then, yes, you'll have the 200,000 that's sitting in the unassigned fund that you had slated to use,
Yeah.
but you didn't use, so it would still be there.
thank you.
So can I ask my constituents, would you vote for that? If you put 1.2 from unassigned funds and pay for the meters?
I wouldn't.
I would rather just fund the parking meters through the ARPA money that we already have
There's no guarantee.
and not add.
We already have some, right?
We have
have
1.4
2.8
million.
or something?
We have some, we don't have clarity on whether this is an
Right.
allowable cost.
Right, there's no
So-
guarantees.
And if it's not, then we put it in next year's budget, but, and I guess, so, I mean, the bottom line being, if the taxpayer increase is gonna be $42 with, parking meters, but by using 1.2 million out of the unassigned fund balance, I would probably defer to the recommendation of the finance director as to whether that seemed like a good idea, when last night she said she didn't recommend taking more than 1 million out of the unassigned fund.
I can't vote for a budget that does not have parking meters in it that are so vital for this town.
Were you gonna vote for it anyhow?
Wait, I have a question for.
I don't really appreciate that sarcasm.
Well,
Right.
I mean,
Okay.
you've made it pretty clear you're against it from the
I
beginning.
don't appreciate.
So
sarcasm.
if it has parking meters, you know, I don't know that you'd still vote for it, just based on what you've indicated to the board.
That's not needed.
It's, okay, I'm just telling you what you've said, the impression I got, you know.
A clarification question here, I guess. So if we sort of did this smoke and mirror shuffle that we're talking about here, we wouldn't actually have to buy the parking meters. I mean, we could wait. It would be in the budget to use, but we could wait until we got the permission to use the ARPA funds for that. So i.e., if we didn't use it at all, that would just transfer on. So in other words, if it was a no, we would wait to buy the purchase the parking meters until we actually got the okay to use those funds. The question would be timing, whether we could have enough time to order them and get them in this season, would be the only question. Does that make any sense?
I'm gonna back into that by saying there will always be a question whether we'll be able to order them and get them in this season. I think we all know computer chips are not being brought into the country right now. And I know that for most of these things, the last time I talked with Hannah, you know, it was an 8 to 12 week. That's kind of the litmus test for any of the supplies she's getting. If we're discussing putting forth a provision to put the parking meters out of the amount raised by taxes and into the unassigned fund, therefore committing 1.2 million to the unassigned fund. Like Gail said, yes, we are committing that 1.2 of the unassigned fund, but it doesn't come out until we actually incur that cost. And if we don't buy the parking meters, then we don't use that $200,000 and it sits in the unassigned fund and it remains there.
Thank you.
I think the only piece that I wanted to add to it is I had stated earlier, by utilizing the ARPA funds, even though we can't because of the timing wise, is by utilizing them later rather than sooner, it does not provide any relief to the residents. The proposal that's on the table right now, although I feel very strongly about not taking more than $1 million and having the uncertainty of who's going to be sitting up there come June, I would be hopeful that whoever is sitting there recognizes the importance of the parking meters and would have a board vote to utilize the ARPA funds to purchase the parking meters, which I can't imagine that they would not fall under the infrastructure piece of it. I think the proposal that's on the table is workable. I think that it provides the residents with the tax relief that they deserve now versus us not putting in there and then taking the chance that you don't utilize it. And then the burden lays on the voters, which we're really trying to minimize. It is a risk because you don't know who's going to be sitting there on the board. So if the new sitting board says, no, we don't want to use the 200,000 out of the ARPA money to actually buy the parking meters, then you will have a reduction in your unassigned fund. But that's certainly a decision that you can make.
Thanks, Kim.
I mean, I think one other aspect to look at it, and I really do want us to move on, of course, is sort of the optics of what it will, the ballot that people will be voting on will be suggesting that we're using 1.2 million out of the unassigned fund balance. And maybe many of the voters don't really pay much attention to that. For those that do, might be looking at that and saying that seems a little irresponsible of us to do without the full messaging of, but we're hoping to replace that with these federal funds later. Like that's not necessarily, you have to do a lot of messaging in order to get that point across. Just want to kind of point that out as a, if you're looking at the ballot and you're looking at, okay, this budget is funded with 1 million from the unassigned fund balance. I doubt that there are a large percentage of voters that are really gonna hone in on that point, the difference between 1 and 1.2 million, but it might come across as a little reckless.
Like,
And I think we saw a little bit of that in the earlier discussions, the original budget, sort of what's the actual increase? Is it 5 or is it 9? Because we start adding the unassigned balance in. I mean, I would respect what Gail said, you know, about a certain amount we want to like leave in there. So I still, you know, I wouldn't support doing 1.2.
all right, would someone dare to make some sort of a motion? It's only 7:30. We have another 3 hours.
No, we don't.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Alex.
So I would be prepared to make a motion, and I understand that it's not, maybe won't be approved by all, but that would not include parking meters. And so I'm just, before making that motion, I would love to know for sure if the numbers that we were brought with in last night's meeting that were in point number 3, which is on page 7 of that agenda packet last night, that says January 2022 revision with appropriations, tax revenue, and unassigned fund usage, if all of those numbers would still stand. And if so, what would be, for the motion, what would be the amount to be funded in non-tax revenue?
Okay,
Sorry, Tracy.
it's okay. What I'm gonna do for you is actually go to tonight's memo.
Okay.
And here's how I would think about it, and if how you process numbers works differently, please let me know. If you were to solely remove the parking meters, we have a nice round number in there of $200,000, so that recommended motion would drop that 18,678 number at the top of the recommended motion. It would drop that 6 to a 4. And then you would go down to the amount raised by taxes, and you would take that 14,979, and you would take that first 9 and drop it to a 7.
Okay. And so, of course, the 1 million in unassigned funds, and then that 2,698,633 in non-tax revenue would still stand.
Mhm.
Thank you.
And it can, and just, it should reflect that a budget amended, the 2023 general budget amended to exclude parking meters would need to be part of that.
Okay.
There is one hand up here. Can you take that? Can you bring over the phone number ending 1823?
Go ahead. when
Hello.
you're ready. Hi,
Can you hear me good?
yes,
Okay, this is Sherry West, a resident, not an employee. Okay, we have to say that because of some newspapers. Anyway, 2 questions. One, the 1 point whatever % that you're describing for the rate, the rate for the town, do you guys know what the rate for the school is? Have you added to that?
0.07.
0.07, I think we heard.
Yep.
So overall, how much is the tax rate, if you estimate it, going to be for the town, for the residents in the town? I'm not a good mathematician, so there. I'm just curious.
I didn't hear what you
I'm
said.
confused what the
Yeah, I'm
question
not sure
is.
what you're asking, sorry.
I think
When you add the two of those together,
Yeah.
what would be the increase for the residents per 100 or per 1,000 or whatever it is on their tax bill?
Oh,
With 1.0453 is a number I have here. Is that the?
Sherry, are you asking also with the school budget, or are you just talking about?
Yeah, because when you get the tax bill, it's not just what the town has got. You have to consider the school part of it as well. So that increases a resident's total taxes, correct? On their tax bill?
So what is the school going to?
0.07.
supposedly.
0.07, and so if we did
Russell mentioned.
0.03 for a 3-cent tax increase, it would be 10 cents total increase per,
Per
yes,
100.
per 100.
Did you catch that, Sherry?
Yep, I did.
Okay.
And the other half, the other part of my question probably is not going to be very popular, but I'm going to say it anyway. What is with the police social worker program? I can't right off the top of my head remember what it is, but wasn't there money rolled over and held in a fund until you hired somebody for that position?
No, it just went into the unassigned funds. So we didn't
Okay.
we don't roll position salaries over.
All right, so there's nothing saved except for what you allotted for that to happen in this next budget, correct?
Yes, and if we're talking about the police social worker, it's paid for by the state.
Okay,
Your advocate for it.
okay.
Okay.
That's all I had to ask.
All right, thank you.
Sherry?
Ally.
Okay, I'm gonna go for this motion. Here we go. So Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the fiscal year 2023 general budget amended to exclude parking meters totaling 18,478,171.33 to be funded with 2,698,633 in non-tax revenue, $1 million of unassigned funds, and 14,779,538.33 to be raised by taxes.
Right, and
Second.
Second from Kim. Okay. Any questions or comments?
That'll be a no for me. I'm probably no anyways. Mike referenced this earlier. I'm not sure you can save me for this, but for the things I mentioned earlier.
Okay.
Right.
Any, yeah.
I made a strong statement earlier that I would go for the budget for other reasons, and I even stronger because I feel that we should have parking meters.
Ally?
No more discussion. I
Are
made
we
the motion. Are we
With
moving?
those votes?
I think they were discussion.
I think they're just sort of discussing.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Any other comments or discussion about anything? Okay, so we'll do a roll call vote. So Dennis,
Nay.
okay, Lanny,
Nay.
Ally,
Aye.
Joe,
Nay.
okay, Mike,
Aye.
okay, Kim,
Aye.
and I'm gonna do an aye as well. So we have 4 in favor and 3 opposed. Lana, did you catch that or you need me to? Okay, gotcha. All right, so that brings us to,
Take a break.
yeah, let's take a 5-minute break and come back at 7:30.
What's the total?
1113, I think.
1113.
Yeah, should we do it?
to make the wastewater.
We're gonna wait for Joe.
Yeah, but I just want to make sure that someone has that pulled up if they don't, so I just don't want to forget it.
Got it right here.
Okay, perfect. Hey. Ready? Okay. So still need to make the motion to approve the wastewater language clarification.
I'm happy to do that.
Okay, Kim, go ahead, thanks.
Mr. Chair, I move that the select board approve the fiscal year 2023 Queechee wastewater fund budget totaling 1 million. Oh, it's a period there instead of a comma, but so $1,160,499.50 expenses to be funded by $1,160,499.50 of revenue.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Joe. Any questions or comments, discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So it is unanimous. Thank you. Okay, that brings us to town meeting cycle meetings, remote, in person, or hybrid. So you're at. How are people feeling?
All right, what do you guys want? I know that before the meeting, there was a little bit of conversation. And I'm seeing if anybody had any new information for me as to whether the school board has formally voted to go remote or whether that was a kind of temperature check. So Mike, go
I
ahead.
was just looking at the draft minutes for the last meeting. It mentions a poll of the board about meeting preference in person or virtual. Mr. Merrill answered remotely, not in person. Other board members agreed. So I don't know if the poll is, an official for binding vote, but it looks like there was general consensus that it be remote.
Totally remote.
Strictly remote or hybrid?
Remotely, not in person is what they agreed to, at least in their draft minutes.
They do have a meeting tomorrow.
I just think whatever we do, we should be consistent. The two boards should be consistent, just to not confuse residents. So I don't know if there's a way to
It's on their agenda for tomorrow.
warn that or talk about that we could say something like that, but whatever. And how people feel. Yeah. Yeah.
Whenever I've been a citizen out there, I've always liked to be able to look my representatives in the eye. And I think that personally, if we're all wearing masks, there's no reason why we can't hold a meeting at the facility. And if we undertake precautions, COVID precautions, I mean, there's not that many people that show up for town meeting day. We can space the auditorium out well enough for participants, and we're off wearing masks as we're sitting here. We are tonight. I don't see any reason why we can't do this in person and have our constituents be able to look us in the eye. My personal opinion.
I think it's my understanding, I think that it's not required that as long as there's one member of each board physically present, that there's not a requirement that they would necessarily have to be there. So people could choose not to if they wanted to. I'm just throwing it out there. I don't know, but that's my understanding. So I hear what you're saying, but with that, I'm not sure if everyone's going to show up anyway.
I realize that, but those that wish to show up
Yeah.
and look me in the eye or speak about the budget, I want them to be able to do so in person. And I think it's only fair for somebody to be able to come and look us in the eye for making a decision that we're doing, and to be able to be available to them.
Dennis.
Thank you again. I can't remember. How was this done last year? And based on that question, the answer to it, how well was it received?
Fully remote last year.
Okay.
And were our numbers, do you know, COVID numbers better, worse, the same? Do we have any recollection, same, remember?
You mean in terms of like case positivity rate?
Yeah.
Give me a second. Generally, most states are at 400% above what they were this time last year, but that was a few days ago.
And we're talking, it's what, 6 weeks away, 5 weeks away.
We're at 400% of last winter's peak in the state of Vermont. It's
Mr. Chairman, just, oh, I'm sorry.
That's good, thanks.
Well, just further thinking in the few seconds I've had to think about this. I must say that our moderator did an incredible job. I was just admiring his IT expertise, I guess, on the cannabis meeting that we had, or what one recently. Yeah, that was the info night with cannabis. I was just very impressed with the way the moderator included those that were remote and obviously in person, but knowing that, I bet he could handle this and do it well if we did do it totally remote. I don't know what his thoughts are.
So leaning into
Yeah, I'm not advocating that we don't do anything remote. I'm just thinking that we should have a hybrid meeting. And that I personally feel the board should be there, but that's my thoughts. I completely feel that people, if they don't wish to come, should not come. But I think that those that wish to come and look me in the eye or look us in the eye should have that opportunity. So,
Ellie and then Dennis.
Yeah. Yeah, Dennis, to your point, and I mean, last year's was fully remote, and I think our moderator did do a fantastic job. And I am remembering a lot of folks, especially for budgeting candidates night, I think we had over 200 folks who were in attendance on Zoom and a really, really robust discussion. And so the other thing in terms of hybrid, I would be in favor of fully remote just because of where we are with cases and just being able to get through the surge and not, create another opportunity where, like every case kind of matters with how fast it seems like COVID is spreading with this new variant. So if we can minimize that to the best of our abilities, I would be in favor of that. And I think also just sort of from an equity perspective too, on that front, I think as we see with hybrid meetings, select board meetings, for instance, I think we do the best that we can, but I think ultimately with a hybrid meeting, we do inherently privilege folks who are in person and present slightly more than on remote, because if there might be, not intentionally, but if there are technical issues or what have you. And so I think I'd be in favor of fully remote also, just to sort of level the playing field as best we could. I understand that remote can be challenging for some folks, and I would hope that we can maybe work out something where we can help folks access Zoom and know what to do in advance to be able to access to the best of their abilities and participate fully. But I think it worked really well last year. The engagement was really, really high. And if the school board is already sort of pointing in that direction, I would be in favor of moving there as well.
I was next, I think.
Sorry.
Yeah, all of what Ally just said, but a further thought again, I have been, since we've been in this nightmare, thinking hybrid was the best. And my thoughts on that recently been changing, because I haven't hosted one of these meetings and I don't know how to do that. But I am hearing from most all our staff and some of these other liaison type meetings I attend, hybrid for them is a nightmare to orchestrate. If it's in person, that's easy. If it's all remote, it's very easy, I guess. I haven't been on the host end of this, but so my opinion on it has been changing, and mainly because I'm learning more about this, and whether it's technical or whatever. Totally remote is easier for the ones doing it than hybrid. Thank you.
I think you're right. And I think we see that here with CATV. I mean, Kim pretty much monitors all the people that are offsite on the Zoom calls, because it's too hard, I think, to try and do this. Tracy did a couple of meetings at the beginning where she's trying to do both, and you can't keep up with what's in the room and what's online and still participate. So I think you're absolutely right there. Anyway.
I think that technology is awesome. I mean, I was able to Zoom in from Hawaii. I think it's great. But I also feel that if you have a town meeting strictly by electronic means, it cuts out a large segment of your population, of your elderly population that may not be technologically savvy and be able to Zoom in. I just had a sister city meeting tonight, and I experienced, and I'm pretty technically savvy. I had problems with sound and getting microphone working. So just a minor thing. I mean, I got it solved, but I can imagine the difficulties that people of the older generation would have, and they would give up. But if the meeting hall was available, they would be able to show up in person, and I have to worry about that. And I firmly believe that it cuts out a large segment of society that does not have the technical skills that people sitting on this board would have. And that's something we have to consider when we have a meeting that we're looking for the citizens of Hartford. We're basically practicing segregation by having a meeting that's not allowing people to be there.
Ally?
Yeah, I hear that, Lanny, and I do recognize that folks have different facility with technology for sure. And then I think on just the other side of that, just to offer something else, is that if there are folks who are maybe homebound for various reasons, who might be some of the folks that you're describing, who this would offer them a way to participate without having to leave home. That's also, you know, I could make the case for some increased engagement as well, which I think might have been true for some folks last year. So I hear you. I don't know exactly what the numbers is like this versus that, but I just want to offer that as well, that it might also be helping folks who might not be able to get there anyway, who might not feel safe getting there for various reasons. So I'll leave it there.
If you don't know electronic device though.
More thoughts. So when this came up last year, was this was there no option? Did the state says this will just be all remote period, or was there options? And then this year they give us the option of doing either any of the three, in person, hybrid, or remote.
I can't speak. Sorry, Dan. I
What?
see you looking at me. going, "Oh."
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, last year it was an option that you could, the town, because some towns postponed their town meeting till, like May or June. So I think it was an option last year, if I remember correctly. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it was that you could do whatever you wanted to do. And because we had to do the same thing, there were the three issues that are on the floor usually on the Saturday morning that we had to do on the ballot. So if I remember correctly, I'm not 100% sure, but I think it was an option last year as well. But Mike, did you have something? Sorry.
Oh, yes, I could support either a hybrid or a fully remote. If it was hybrid, I'd show up. Fully remote, I'd get on Zoom. I think Dennis and Lanny both make some good points about it. So I guess that's just to say I'd support either one.
I'm there too.
So how do people feel about this? Kim, go
Oh,
ahead.
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I just wanted to, I wanted to kind of follow up on your question, because I'm also comfortable either way, hybrid or fully remote, for like budget candidates night. But the town meeting day, if we do, and we have to vote on this, whether or not to put those questions on the Australian ballot, which at this moment, it looks like they are on there. The things that are usually on the floor vote on the Saturday before. I guess if those questions are on the ballot, do we need to have, do we still need to have that session of the town meeting day? Like what, because we'll have a cannabis information warrant.
We did have it last year, and there was next to no one there.
You
because it
have
was
to
on
have
the-
both. You have to have budget and candidates saying you have to have town meeting day.
Okay, and we did it remotely last year.
Yes.
So anyway, I guess, yeah, I'd be okay with hybrid or fully remote for either one, probably leaning toward.
And
hybrid.
does the school doesn't have anything that they vote on at the floor meeting on Saturday, is that correct? So their stuff already is on the ballot, is that right?
The board compensation is
Is that the only thing, but that's one of our things as well, right? But they don't have anything else that would be there on the floor, right?
The school board?
Yeah,
They have their own separate ballot.
because I'm just thinking if they have really no reason to be there other than what they compensate their officers, they're probably not gonna go hybrid is my guess. And I just think it's really important that we have consistency between the school board and the select board. And I don't know how we sort of get to that point. That's what I'm
Well, I'm sorry.
So that's all.
Well, Dennis raised his hand.
Do we have to decide this tonight? Can we wait and hear what the school board is up to and then go from there? Or does this have to be decided? tonight?
Yeah, we need to print the town report like Friday. Basically, it needs to go to the printer. So,
How we conduct the meeting would be in there?
yes, because if it's remote, you have to put those 3 items. And if it's hybrid, you don't have to put those 3 items
On the,
on the warning.
Okay.
Yeah, Joe.
I was really going back and forth and, Ally made some tremendous points and Lanny did as well, as far as the people with not the technical ability. And I talk to people like that all the time. I think what we have to do, in my opinion, is we're kind of just waiting for, and we don't know what the school board's going to do. So let's just lead, say whatever we're going to do, and hopefully they will know what we're going to do and they'll follow. I tend to lean towards hybrid simply because it gives us the best of both worlds. If people want to come in person, they can do that. If people want to come. I do agree with you, Ally, to a certain extent, but one of the things that I have found, Chuck is a master at being able to go both to people online and people in the audience. So I would vote for hybrid at this point.
Make a motion.
there's a hand up
Oh,
here.
sorry.
I also sent you all an email from Tom DeBalzi that says, hi, thanks, the school board, and this is from Friday night. The school board decided to go all remote if possible.
Oh,
So, and I think that's what Mike was saying, but this is an email from Tom, and he sent it out to me, Kevin, Christie, Dan and Joe.
You
I knew
forwarded
I
that to
remembered it.
us?
And I just forwarded that to you.
Oh, just
so-
now.
Just now.
So what
'cause
you're
I-
saying, I should have known that, right?
It's all good, Fred. There's a lot going on these days.
If possible, what does that mean?
Perhaps they are following our lead a little bit. I don't know. That's a short sentence, but
Okay, Dennis, go ahead.
Thank you again. The two motions here, maybe I'm missing something, but the first one, my words, says remotely only, and the second one is in person. I'm sure we can change this, but there's no motion here for a hybrid option, I guess.
No, the second one is just, I'm sorry. The
Just
second
in-
one is just about putting those questions that are usually voted on the floor on the ballot or on the warning, which becomes ballot language.
I think maybe it can, yeah, what Dennis is asking is that if someone did want to make a motion to have this be hybrid, that would just have to be a change of the wording. That we haven't been spoon fed that wording, but that we would just change remote meetings to.
Thank you.
And go ahead.
So what happens if we decide to do this hybrid? Okay, and we have a vote that comes up, and I'm not saying this is gonna happen, but to raise the salaries of the select board members, that has to be voted on, okay? That means that someone's gonna have to put a ballot together for the next day for voting, for voting day to be that way. I mean, it has to be voted on by the citizens. Generally, it's voted on by those at the town meeting.
But I think they're gonna be
But-
online, so I think they vote by like roll call on the,
Can we? What can be voted for? I'm trying to.
well, now,
Votes by voters from the floor cannot be held remotely. So in other words, votes by voters from the floor cannot be, so nobody's voting remotely can vote. Nobody's on there can vote remotely.
Good point.
So that's
Unless-
the problem that I'm seeing.
but look at the exceptions for the things, so town officer and school board compensation, so the things that would normally be on the floor that are usually voted from the floor are the exceptions to that policy. Is my take on that. Ally, go
I
ahead.
think, Dan, no, I think, Lanny, you bring up a good point. My reading of this, and might be incorrect, is that Hartford is in the enviable position of already voting most items via Australian ballot, but we can't put these things on here. So therefore, town officer and school board director compensation, collection of town and school district tactics on real estate, et cetera. Therefore, for voters to vote on all items, this town school district meeting cycle, we need to authorize placing it on the ballot as well. Town or school district ballots.
Right. So then, basically, that's saying that the option then becomes, and I guess I'm asking this, I'm not stating it. The option becomes then not that someone could move from the floor to change the rates, they then only have the option to vote yes or no on the ballot.
I think that's correct.
That would be one of the things that would be a condition or a consequence of taking it from the floor meeting and putting it on the ballot. That sound about right? Yeah.
This would be a Lisa question, I think. But
You guys are asking as if the meeting was hybrid, if the people who were remote would be able to vote on the 3 items that usually are held on the, or the 2, I'm sorry, the 2 items that are held on the floor. Is that,
yes,
okay?
that to me, that's a Lisa question, expert. I'm not sure. she
And
was-
it comes to legislation though.
And then.
This reads funny. That's why I'm,
Yeah, and then follow up to that would be, if voters from the floor cannot be held remotely, so either in a hybrid or fully remote scenario, which it seems like we would do one of those 2 things, and vote on that tonight, then either way, we would want to make sure that this is on the ballot so that folks who don't come in person are able to still have an opinion.
I'm gonna
Maybe.
assume it's no surprise to you all that most of my staff watch remotely. So Lisa says, even hybrid, you need those questions because voters participating remotely could not vote that way. It's not allowed. They couldn't vote hybrid. So you are correct, Laney, that if you had a hybrid meeting, the people who are participating remotely could not vote on these on the floor.
Yikes.
Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa.
That's good to know.
yeah.
So obviously,
But
if
they
it's
could-
totally remote, they can't vote either.
They could vote on the ballot and then more people, I mean, typically more voters come out to vote than show up at town meeting day. So
But what do we put on the ballot? If
it's
somebody
on
makes a
there, the
motion
language
to,
is on there.
but what I'm saying is though, if somebody says, okay, I vote to give the select board $25 more an hour, do we know that? Or do we know they're gonna give us 50 or do they, no? we're
No,
gonna-
it's a yes or no.
So we would create that language and either say, this is what it is, yes or no. There's no real discussion about it. You couldn't change it there.
Okay, so voters, okay, it's up or down.
Yeah.
It's number 24 on the warrant, the warning, which should actually be number 23 because we have a accidental line.
But I know that it's late and I'm not trying to cause problems, but I think this is an issue that I'm glad Lisa texted it. Thank you, Lisa.
Okay, question from public?
Yeah.
Do you let Mike on?
Oh, Mr. Chair, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mike Morris, Hartford, Vermont. A question about the going remotely. I've been involved for the last long time, anyways, watching these meetings and everything else. I would like to, if we're going to do remotely, I'd like to see something implemented that we've had some, I think, how do I want to say this? We've had some instances where the chair has shut people off from speaking because they can shut off their microphone. But if they're there in person, that person might be able to explain that there was a misunderstanding or something that maybe there wasn't a reason to shut them down. And in person, you can do that, but remotely you can't. What's going to be an enforcement to where someone can't just shut them down because they misunderstood something or don't like something. I personally feel this has happened in the past. And I don't think it's particularly fair. But I've even had times where the chair was accused of shutting down another citizen and myself at one remote meeting that did not happen. I did a little work on the sidelines and got that cleared up because it was posted on local media, social media, that the chair had shut people down to where we couldn't even re-enter even watch the meeting. And to prevent that from happening, I think we need to do something a little bit above and beyond. As I say, in the past, I think there's been instances where the chair has shut off the microphone because he has the power to. And I don't think it was necessarily fair without an explanation from both parties. So if we are going to go remotely, I think we need to figure out how we're going to, or you're going to control this from not happening in the future. Am I clear on what I'm saying? Do you understand what I'm saying? Number one,
Yes, I do.
am I making sense?
Joe, go ahead.
So first of all, the town moderator controls that, and the reason we have one because he's apolitical, and so it is no one that is on the board, and I'm sorry. I mean, he has done a spectacular job, as several people on this board has said. So I'm in full trust of Chuck Worcester and having him control these meetings, and I think he's done a wonderful job, both past and present, in doing such. So I put my full confidence in him and controlling the meetings and having a fair and equitable meeting.
Yes, please.
I'm done.
Hi, Lisa.
Yeah, Lisa, are you there?
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
This is Lisa O'Neill, the town clerk. I've been listening with great interest. I'm hoping I can impart some information, both from last year and my understanding of what you can and can't do related to remote meetings. Last year, I will say, both the budget and candidates night as well as the town meeting day were both held remotely. Chuck Wooster is in fact the moderator and conducted both meetings quite fairly, both for the school board and for the select board. And all the board members participated remotely, as did any residents who wished to participate. The meetings were conducted from the select board room. Chuck
I may have made a mistake here.
was there, and Paula and I were in the room just to help monitor hands being raised, et cetera. And I believe there was a CATV person there as well. I believe the school is only planning to vote on the remote option. Last year, there was never a discussion about hybrid. But to clarify, if you're going to choose to go remote, I would recommend full remote, just for ease and consistency and equal participation. The voters, if you did a hybrid, the voters do not have the option to vote from a remote location. So those questions for the select board, it includes the compensation question and the question related to when tax bills are to be paid. Those must be on your ballot if you go and host these two meetings remotely. And our two meetings are required by the charter. The school board's question that is normally voted from the floor is their compensation. And again, that would be on their warning, as they were last year. I don't know if that helps clarify. I'm happy to answer questions if I can.
Thank you, Lisa. Andy, go ahead.
Lisa, we could still hold a hybrid and have no votes take place and have the votes be on the ballot, correct?
I am not going to speak to open meeting law in that way. I think a hybrid meeting, just my personal opinion, not even just as your clerk, but my personal opinion is it will get very disjointed in a hybrid format. And I also think, given the numbers of COVID cases and what's been happening recently, I think the public was very comfortable last year, it seemed, and we had really good participation full on remote. It will be up to the board, obviously, to decide which methodology you prefer, whether it's all in person or all remote, or in this case, I guess, hybrid. As I said, this question never came up last year about having a hybrid option. So I don't know where that came from. But I guess it will be up to the board. I am not an elected official or a voting member.
Lisa, did you ever get any complaints last year about the ability to citizens to not be able to be heard because they didn't have the technology? Because I just, as I said, I see that from a segment of our population. Did you ever get any complaints about people saying?
I personally didn't. My recollection was, for the most part, we got very positive feedback. I can't say that there weren't people out there who had any difficulty but I didn't hear any of it firsthand. We got very good feedback from it.
So please be quiet.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. There's another member of the public.
Okay, second voted.
Okay,
Yeah.
Michelle will be right with you.
Along with what Laney just mentioned, I'm just curious if I'm an elderly person, say, or some special needs or something and doesn't have IT capabilities, is there any assistance for somebody that might be impaired or not be able to use the computer or doesn't have a computer to participate?
Are you asking me, Dennis?
That was an open question to anybody that can answer it, Lisa.
My recollection on the warnings, and I think the language before you on the two warnings that you are considering, I believe there is a call-in option as well, where they could call in. I'm not sure there'd be assistance from the people hosting the meeting per se, but I believe the warning, if memory serves me correctly, includes, even for your own meetings, a call-in option.
Okay, well, that totally answers my question then, because most everybody has a phone at least, so they would be able to participate even if it wasn't through video, they'd be able to participate. So
Tracy may be able to clarify that. That was the.
There's a call in, and then it says to watch on TV, go to Comcast channel 1085. So you got a call in, a Comcast channel, YouTube, and Zoom.
And I do remember, Dennis, there was at least one, maybe two at least, that called in via phone to budgeting candidates night last year. So it definitely is an option.
If you call in and if you're on the phone, you call in, I'm sure you can listen to it. Can you participate and hold your hand up or something? You hit pound or some method?
Like that.
Yeah, at the front of the warning, it says, right here in the box, it says press *9 to raise your hand for public comment. So that's the option people would have.
Do you have anything else? No. Okay. All right. And do I vaguely remember that Louise Senior Center did something to help people last year, or am I imagining that?
I'm remembering that too, actually.
Yeah.
I don't want to speak
So-
for
so
them, but I do remember that.
Yeah, don't quote me, but I think that they offered some kind of support for people that needed it. Kim, yeah, who's on the call?
Michelle, go ahead. You're muted, Michelle.
Okay, I'm muted. Hi, Michelle Bolesky, White River Junction. So some of you might know I was on the school board for 4 years. And just a reminder that there are two separate governing bodies. So any decision where something is jointly conducted needs to be agreed on together. One board doesn't have authority over another board to determine whether something's going to be remote or hybrid. That's something that the two boards have to come together to discuss and agree upon. And in the past, I know, when we've had meetings before, the two select board chairs have gotten together to talk, and the two administrators have gotten together to talk, to hash out, the problems or issues. So just wanted to remind everyone of that. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.
Yeah, question. So if we hold the meeting from here, which was done last year, correct? Are the doors going to be open so we can have people come and participate?
No, I
That
don't
would be
think
a
so.
hybrid meeting.
So, okay, so absolutely no way is anybody from the public going to be allowed to be in the room with us, other than if they're involved with CATV or anything.
Because then it would be a hybrid meeting, not a
So it's
remote
totally
meeting.
okay.
And there were, to the best of my knowledge, I don't think there was any select board members physically present here. We were all zooming in as well.
That's correct.
So it was just Lisa and I forget who else she said, Paula and CATV, Chuck.
And Chuck.
Yeah.
Does that prevent a select board member from being here?
I honestly don't know the answer to that.
I think, yes, because if they wouldn't be helping to operate the meeting, then they would be considered a participant. And so all participants of that meeting would have to be remote if we were saying we were going fully remote.
That's a good question. I don't know. That's logical, but I don't know.
I mean, it's a select board meeting, isn't it? Select board.
The town meeting,
It's
so
school
it's,
and town.
yeah, school and town, so it's, I don't know. Kim, and then we'll go to Dennis.
And it's just skimming the 172, the bill. Like in nowhere does it say hybrid. I mean, it basically says the town may, a municipality may use electronic means without designating a physical location to conduct a public informational hearing held pursuant to 17 VSA 2680 in advance of the municipality's annual meeting. When a public information hearing is held electronically under subdivision 1 of the subsection, the municipality shall, and it goes through like in nowhere, and I don't know if I just kind of skimmed through, it's only about 5 pages.
That's 172. Kim?
Yeah, S-172.
That's the new bill that gave you the option to go fully remote. Because
Right.
right now you all have the permanent option to make choices to be in person or hybrid.
Okay.
And this expands that option.
Okay. So it does expand, it doesn't. limit it.
Yeah.
Okay. And Mike has his hand up.
All right, let's go back to Dennis. No, Mike.
So I'm still trying to wrap my head around this. If we have a hybrid meeting, one of us has to be here, but if we do totally remote, we don't need to be here?
I think that's correct, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mike.
Mike, go ahead.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I owe the board an apology for asking that question earlier. I went back and looked at the agenda and I realized that this was all about town meeting decisions on whether we do it hybrid or remote. And I was talking about select board meetings. So I definitely do not want to offend Chuck Worcester. I think he's a good leader and done a great job. So my apologies for misunderstanding or not reading the agenda properly. So my question about the hybrid or whatever would be for select board meetings, not for the town meetings. So my apologies for stirring up a hornet's nest. Thank you.
Okay, is that it on public?
Just a point of clarification, somebody could be sitting in the room with the laptop, if it was one of you, but they cannot speak directly to or address the moderator except electronically, but you could be in the building. But you would need to moderate yourself to not speak to or address anyone except for electronically.
From the other room. You could be.
If we were fully remote.
Good, thank you. Okay. So are we ready to make a motion perhaps? Yep.
I mean, solely based on, not solely based on, but primarily based on what it seems like the school is going to do. And I mean, like, we have discussed some lack of communication between superintendent of schools and the town manager because they've tried, like, Tracy has tried to reach out to them and has not been reciprocated. So I think this would have been useful information, but it wasn't provided. And they, I think, are not officially voting on it until tomorrow. The draft notes sound like there was a general poll that they were going
Yeah,
to
it sounded like
vote.
a general consensus to be fully remote, but nothing, it wasn't like an official vote.
Yeah, I mean,
And I want to say, Kim, in the school's defense, if I'm stressed out with a 10% of my employees out with some sort of
Yeah.
COVID related thing, like props to the school, that I'm glad I'm not dealing with that right now. So, I know that they're also doing what we're doing, and that the last word on that is all remote if possible. And I think they're still trying to scramble to get their own warnings and agendas out because they got a lot of stuff going on over there.
if that's, the case, I'm really ready to make a motion.
I think we're ready, yeah.
Mr. Chair, I move to hold the 2022 budget and candidates night and town meeting day meetings remotely.
I'll second that.
Yes. Any questions or comments? Any?
Yeah, I'm gonna vote no on this. I'm still a little old school and I like to be able to see people face to face. I can use the technology. I don't have a problem with that. But I still believe that town meeting's all about meeting your representatives, and I appreciate that ability to do that. And so I'm gonna have to vote no on this.
Other questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll call the question. I think we'll just do a roll call. So
Nay.
Aye.
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 aye. So 6 in favor, 1 opposed. All right.
And then we need to do the second one.
Yep.
Can we, okay, so we're gonna discuss this actual document after that, because I do have some questions about that. Okay.
We are gonna do the second one.
So does anyone want to make a motion or a discussion?
I'm just curious about what the question on the ballot would be for our compensation. How would you word that? Do you want to continue?
I
with-
think it's in this warning packet that was also there, the other sheet will have it. And I think Kim says number 24, 23.
Oh, sorry, it is number
Got an
24.
extra line in there.
24?
Yep, number 24, I think.
Questions 23 and 24, so that's when taxes are collected and compensation, typically on the floor. If you're remote, you want to put them on the ballot so people can vote on them. Those are the two that are up, that second motion is referring to, since you have the warning in front of you.
Okay.
Questions, comments, or discussion? Hearing none, we'll entertain a motion.
Yeah. I mean, to me, there's not a choice. There's no choice here.
It's a formality.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be.
I think we just have to document it for legality reasons to say we went through the process and actually officially voted on it, but you're right.
This is a 1 year only.
Right.
Assuming we get rid of this virus, by the following year, we'd be doing it the regular way.
Okay,
I'm happy to make a motion. I feel like I've been making all the motions.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sure. I mean, I think I did some too, but I will go for it. So, Mr. Chair, I move to have the questions traditionally voted by floor vote on the Saturday preceding voting day pertaining to town officer compensation and collection of real estate taxes in 2 installments placed on the town ballot for consideration by the voters on March 1st, 2022. The article shall be included in the town meeting warnings.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mike, any other questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
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 I think that was unanimous in my, correct?
I'll vote yes.
Okay, all right, yep, so it's unanimous. Thank you.
Should have to.
Okay, and that brings us to the annual town and school district meeting day warning. Kim, you said you have some questions, so when you're ready, go ahead.
Well, just we need to make an amendment to it so that,
We fixed that line that got hit.
okay, so there are actually only 24 items, not 25.
Yeah.
Just make sure. And I guess I would say if we approve this, that, wait, do we have a motion for this or not?
You don't, approve the warning for,
Okay, so I will just say whoever moves that, if they do, it would be amended from what we're like, I mean, what we have as a document. It's gonna be amended.
yes.
Okay.
What?
I didn't make a motion yet.
Oh,
So number 3, it's just like it should say by Australian ballot at the end of the line of number 2. Yeah. And it looks like it was just a accidental return on a keyboard. Yeah.
Let the floggings begin.
Oh, no, no, no.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
I didn't do the math to add these all up, so I assume.
I think you can say like I move to amend this by striking number 3 and renumbering the remaining sections to be numerically correct. Okay,
Go
I
for it.
move.
I mean, I didn't do the math on
I hate
the
computer formatting.
amounts. I wasn't
Oh, on
thinking
the
about
amounts. Oh, I thought we were talking about that thing.
I didn't add up the appropriations.
I think Gail said she did, so
all right, Gail, Joe, and I, at various times of the day, added those up. But we do have to change the warning to reflect the change in the budget that you all passed. I'm also I'm realizing that we were supposed to have another piece of paper for you guys, so do you want me to pull that warning up with the changes and put it on the screen, whoever's doing this warning? My computer's freezing.
What do we?
I would really appreciate that, Tracy. Yeah, just to
Okay.
make sure that we're reflecting that change. So Lanny, what is currently on the warning is, this number, but this isn't what we actually just approved earlier.
Right.
So we just need to make that amendment.
Right. Gotcha.
Yeah. These two numbers are correct, but this one is not.
You guys, we did inadvertently not put this is for the town meeting. I need to pull my screen down, or somebody needs to write this down because I need to look something up for you, but I can't do both on this laptop at the same time.
I'm happy to write down this.
Do you see the change? It's bold and underlined. It's just that 2 right there.
So 18,253,000.
Yes.
Yeah.
99433.
None of those other numbers change. It's just a 4 to a 2.
Got it. Okay.
And that is because of the $200,000.
Yes.
Yep.
All right, I'm gonna stop my sharing. I've got to clear out some of these.
Yeah, so it's just the new number.
We have a hand up.
Okay.
Natalie?
Natalie, when you're ready.
224,177.
Hello. I am just trying to understand why there are board members who are publicly via Facebook, other other measures, trying to undermine the board's movements and then coming back here to meetings to make things happen. I'm just trying to figure things out, and I am just thinking about, are you not a cohesive group? And if not, what's happening? That's my thoughts. And I have been watching for a long time, listening for a long time. And the fact that many things happened this last couple of weeks, including a reduction in many expenditures and then re-adding to them, even though publicly some board members spoke against them, just trying to figure that out. That's all.
Thank you. I think it's kind of a work in progress as we get new information and updated information on things that potentially can change how people feel, as well as feedback that we receive from the general public about the number might be too high, or people specifically want this in it or not in it or whatever. So I think as we receive feedback from the public, individual board members, and maybe the board as a whole has heard that and taken that into consideration for how their personal opinions affect how they voted.
Natalie, if I got your name right, Natalie, if you're still on, you mentioned something about Facebook, and I don't want to get necessarily get into the weeds about that. I'm just trying to make sure I understand when you're saying that some things are being said on different platforms maybe, and then different things are being said here. I don't know if you could just elaborate on that piece, just so that I understand.
Yes, a couple of members of the Facebook group have written about a $19 million or 10%, 9%. I mean, a lot of misappropriation has been posted online on Facebook about the budget and how things have been handled. And I think it creates a lot of distrust in the board, which is not fair, considering the board's doing their best, I think, in my mind. But there's a lot of chatter online, which has caused, I think, a distrust in the board, which is not fair. So that's my thoughts here.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks.
Are we ready for a motion?
I think so, yeah.
Everybody good?
Yep.
All right.
And I just, for the record, did add up all the appropriations. They do come up to 224,177.
Which is the
Thanks, Jim.
difference. Yes, I did the difference. I came up with that.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Excellent. Yep.
All right, I'm gonna give it my best shot here for this. I move that the board amend the warning for the annual town meeting 2022 in section 2 by striking that and adding the following language: shall the town authorize total fund expenditures for operating expenses of $18,253,994.33.
You're good. We'll catch you off the tape. We'll catch you off the tape, Mike.
Oh, okay, sorry. Plus any appropriations voted below, of which $2,698,633 shall be raised by non-tax revenue, $1 million by unassigned fund balance transfer, and the balance by property tax revenue. Then amending Article 3 by striking it and renumbering the remaining sections to be numerically correct, and then approving the warning as amended.
Mike, can I make a friendly amendment? That was wonderful. The one, maybe I would just amend. You said the striking line 3 by Australian ballot, and technically, right, we don't want to strike that entirely. We want to add by Australian ballot to the end of item 2.
Right. So I don't have to do it again, do I? Can we just?
I think you can accept that.
Oh, okay.
Amendment, and then we'd be okay.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay. Then is there a second to that?
Second.
Second from Joe. Any other questions or comments? Discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So it's unanimous. Thank you.
And then you got your second single piece of paper. Do we need them to approve the Saturday meetings? You know? Let's go ahead and just approve this warning, this one pager as well. Let's just dot the T's, cross the I's, and then we can make sure that nobody thinks that we forgot something.
So do we have to read the whole thing, or can we just say we approve this document as presented, or what's the proper procedure?
And is this isn't impacted at all by a remote town meeting day, because this is just to discuss the following, to receive reports of the town officers, to do any other necessary proper non-binding business. So this doesn't indicate at all that we will be voting on items that will now be on Australian ballot that we usually vote on town meeting day.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure what you just.
Okay. Anyway, I just read through this for the first time, and basically I wanted to verify that we're warning this meeting and there is not any voting going on during this meeting, because this will be held remotely. The questions that are usually on the floor on town meeting day, February 26th this year, there are usually votes on the floor, but this is saying the purpose of town business meeting being to discuss the following, not to vote on anything. Anyway, that was not a question that maybe was me inappropriate thinking out loud. My apologies.
I think it's good, and I think we can just, when we maybe make a motion about this, stating something, the intent goes along with the remote meeting due to COVID this year, et cetera, that we could add in there just to make sure that's all
Well, it even
documented.
says with electronic participation.
You can just approve the warning for the annual town and school meeting day.
Okay, that's fine. Simple. Kim,
I move that the select board approve the warning for the annual town and school district meeting day 2022.
your second? Dennis is a second. Any questions, comments, discussion? Ally?
I have I'm sorry, in the weeds question, just because I know that as someone who has to host a lot of Zoom meetings, this can happen. If for some reason, and I trust that the information on here is correct and CATV and all folks have done their due diligence, but if for some reason any of this call-in information is incorrect, do we need to rewarn?
I didn't ask that question from CATV. We did talk that you'll notice that this is the usual Zoom link. They have purchased a much higher Zoom platform this year. So that way they're using our usual link that's attached to our account. So this isn't a floating Zoom link. This is the same old one that we use all the time. I mean, the only issue would be if like Zoom went bankrupt and just went away in the next 2 weeks, but I don't think so.
Got it. Okay, thank you. I'm good.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I do believe it's unanimous. Thank you. And then we will entertain a motion to adjourn. If there's no other business.
So moved.
So moved. Okay, is there a second to adjournment?
Second.
Second from Joe, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you very much.